Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Tuesday and it's February the 25th, 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently on these YouTube streets that you always have to remember where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from Nashville, North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, North Carolina grandmother sentenced to life for beating 8-year-old granddaughter to death. So I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll identify some of my sources for you in the description box. Now, this is a very sad situation that could have been prevented, and I wanted to share this video to stress how sometimes you just have to look beyond the surface and why you need to speak up when things just don't seem to be right, even when it may not be the popular thing to do. And despite the final verdict, there are no winners, but lots of failures, lots of losers. So let me share the story with you, and I'd like to encourage you to stick with me until the end so I can share my personal perspective on this very tragic case. And our focus today is on this woman, 74-year-old Patricia Ricks, a Nashville, North Carolina resident. She was grandmother and the legal guardian of 5 young children. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 5 young children. Now, we know that their ages ranges from 5 to 10 years old. And within that home, we're not sure who else lived there, but there was Ricks and those 5 children. And there was one little girl, 8-year-old girl, her name is Crystal, and she's the focus of a discussion today. Now, you may wonder about the parents of these children. We're not really sure, but Ricks did say that she had the children because their parents did not want them. And just about now, you might be saying that Patricia Ricks' action are honorable to take on the legal guardian for those 5 young children, especially 5 children their parents didn't want. But after this video, you might change your mind, because just a few weeks ago, Patricia Ricks was sentenced to life in prison for killing one of those children, the 8-year-old. And the information obtained about this case is simply heartbreaking, because this was not an isolated situation. It was a state of ongoing physical abuse, and if appropriate action had been taken, that 8-year-old child, her life would have been spared. So let's go back to the date of the incident that brought us to this video. It was the evening of February the 7th, 2023. Investigators from the Nash County Sheriff's Office, the police say that around 4 p.m., they responded to a call from a nearby hospital stating that a young child had been brought into the emergency room with severe injuries, and that child was now deceased. The hospital staff also told police that the child had been living with her grandmother at a location they identified in Nashville. So in addition to visiting the emergency room at that hospital, police also went to the home address they were given. And that's where they learned the deceased child had been living with the grandmother, who was the legal guardian for not only that child, but 4 other siblings. It was reported that the grandmother was the person who actually had taken the child to the hospital, and the deceased child had severe blunt force injuries throughout her body as well as to her head. And they said that she actually died before she reached the hospital. It was also mentioned that the instrument used to inflict those injuries was a plunger. And besides knowing the fact that the grandmother was the one who had inflicted those injuries, at that time the police did not know of a motive. But that day in February, grandmother Patricia Ricks was transported to the sheriff's office for further questioning, but she made no statement. So she was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and felony child abuse, inflicting serious bodily injury. She was placed in the Nash County Detention Center, and when she appeared before a judge, a bond was denied. And the terrible beating of this child did not appear to be an isolated case. Now, the sheriff stated that a few weeks before Ricks was arrested, she had been reported to the Nash County Department of Social Services for suspected child abuse. A staff member at Cooper's Elementary School, which is a school where the 8-year-old attended, reported that one day that child came to school and she had been beaten so badly she was barely recognizable. The child told the school staff she was beaten because she had refused to put lotion on her skin. Now, that is the information that was reported to Nash County Department of Social Services, but they never removed that child from the home. And a few weeks later, she was beaten badly once again and died before she could reach the nearby emergency room. And so Patricia Ricks sat in jail as she waited her trial date. But somewhere along the line, her attorneys and the district attorney came to an agreement that she would plead guilty to murder and accept a mandatory life sentence. And last month, January 2025, which was almost 2 years after she was arrested, Patricia Ricks appeared before the court to enter her plea. Reports say that school staff and family members were in the courtroom that day when she pled guilty to murder and to child abuse. Reports say she came into the courtroom in a wheelchair, and her attorney told the court that she was in very poor state of health. Since her incarceration, she had a heart attack and 2 strokes, as well as she had been diagnosed with cancer. And keep in mind, her husband had been in that dementia unit. They did not feel that she would be lived to a trial. They said she was visibly shaken and she struggled to answer questions from the judge as well as to accept the plea agreement. She told the court the child's death was an accident and that she loved all of her grandchildren. That's why she took them in, because their mother and their father did not want them. Now, they said her son appeared via online video and provided testimony on her behalf. And I think it's good that for whatever reason he couldn't be there, but at least he made an effort to support his mother. Now, the district attorney told the court that that 8-year-old girl who died was beaten severely with that plunger. She suffered from multiple blunt force injuries all over her body and her head, but she had also been sexually abused. They elected not to have any of the other children testify, considering all they had been through. This would have been too traumatic for them. And when everyone had said their piece, the judge sentenced Patricia Ricks to life in prison with no chance of parole. Now, the judge also ordered her to undergo psychiatric treatment and that she be placed in a facility that would allow her to have ongoing medical treatment for her medical concerns. And this has been a very emotional case, and people have been responding. There are numerous comments, and I just wanted to share two with you because some of it I do agree with. Not all, but some of it. And here's the first one. It says, "This is one of the most disgusting stories I've ever read. Her claim that it was an accident is just laughable considering the sheer brutality committed against a defenseless child." I agree. "My heart hurts for the little girl and her siblings, yet I'm zero sympathetic for this woman." And this last line, it says, "The system is broken beyond repair and utterly failed Crystal," which is the little girl. Someone within need be held, it was really saying someone within needs to be held accountable as well. Now, and I agree with that too, but let's look at the second comment. It said, "I'm sorry for the child and her. Obviously, the old woman's children are sorry as hell, or grandma wouldn't have them. She was probably trying to protect them from the system that ultimately failed them. That poor old woman had probably listened to that unruly, disrespectful, belligerent child for as long as she could, and she snapped. It's a sad, sad story, but ultimately it's DSS that failed. Where are those defendants?" A lot of what's being said here is true. I'm not saying the child was belligerent. We don't know that. But I have personal feelings about the parent and the fact that DSS has failed and they were held accountable because there were some major changes after this investigation and this death came to light. So now that we have all of the facts and we've had a life sentence, let me share with you my honest opinion on this entire situation. As depressing as it is, that grandmother had no business taking care of those 5 children. The woman looks as if she can barely take care of herself. And it was not just one child, 5 children that she had to care for. And along with her, remember, she had a husband. He may have been in a hospital with dementia, but it was still her husband. And she probably disciplined those children the only way she knew, to physical force, to physical beating. She was probably raised that way, and it's the way she probably raised her own children. So unless someone convinces you of a better way, you'll raise those grandchildren the very same way. It's a fact, it's learned behavior. And I think she got overwhelmed along the way and she took out her frustration on those little ones. Remember, she already had a sick husband, now 5 children. It was simply too much. I bet all of them got beaten. The 8-year-old probably was beaten the worst because she probably was the most challenging. The old woman should have been enjoying her senior years. Somebody should have said no, and that's you, DSS. And I don't think she should have gotten life without parole because others have done worse and they have gotten less time. She should have been punished, but I don't think it was justified to give her life without the possibility of parole. Now, as far as the birth parents, this is what I think. You are just trifling as heck. Now, this may be a comment that's not well received, but people need to stop having all these children and then decide to make them somebody else's responsibility. That's just part of our problem in society today, and it's really getting out of control. It's been going on too long and it's out of control. Them your children, they're your responsibility, and you should be made to take care of them. And I make no apology for what I'm saying. This needs to stop. The grandmother was clear. She took on the responsibilities for those 5 children because their mother and their father did not want them. Don't make all these babies and then decide you don't want them. Birth control is real. Make it work. And I said what I said, and I won't take it back. Now, as far as the school that the young 8-year-old attended, I'm glad that they contacted DSS, but I'm wondering if the school could have done more to protect this child. It's great that they alerted DSS, but I don't think I would have allowed that child to go back home. They said she was beaten. She came to school and she was beaten so badly that she was barely recognizable. I probably would have called the police. At the end of the day, DSS had not shown up. I would have called the police. That's what I would have done. Now, again, I don't fault them, but there's no way. That's the reason why I cannot work with children, because I would be in jail because they would have considered kidnapping. I would not have allowed that child to go home. And then I probably would have lost my job. That's just me. That's what I would have done. Now let's look at DSS. DSS, I hope you've learned from this because your actions have just been shameful. I know a few people already lost their job, and I hope they put enough departmental policies in place to make sure something like this never happen again. But it shouldn't have happened in the first place because you all should have been off of your butts and you should have been out to that home, checking on that family and doing your job. Even when you had reports from the school of the way this child looked, you still never went out there. And had you intervened, that 8-year-old probably could have been alive today. Now, those kids would have been better off in foster care. You had no business giving those 5 children to that old woman. Those kids were better off in foster care. Now, the ones that survived, they're going to be in counseling for the rest of their life because of all the trauma they have already experienced. Do better, DSS. You better do better. And in case you're wondering what happened to the 4 remaining children, I saw a report that in April of 2023, they were returned to the state of South Carolina because that's the state and with the Department of Social Services that had jurisdiction over them. They just happened to be in North Carolina. They had only been here for a few months because of Patricia Ricks being assigned as the legal guardian, but they had been returned not to the parents. They said they would not be returning to the parents, but they were returned to the state of South Carolina. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.